Okay, I'm going to start by welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what that is a little bit later. We start each one of our classes with meditation. The Buddha taught how to train your mind to get to enlightenment, where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You can actually train your mind to get to the point where you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. There's a whole path that the Buddha taught to be able to help you train your mind to get to that point. And meditation is an important part of that. So we train our mind with meditation starting in the morning as first part of our class. And then I'll share with you guys after meditation what the Pali Canon and English study group is, because there's other things besides meditation that you would need to learn and practice in order to be able to train your mind to get to enlightenment. So the way that I start with meditation is I start with some chanting to ease the mind into meditation. And if you guys would like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. Over there on the cabinet, I have chanting sheets that you guys are welcome to get for yourself. And you'll see the chants that I'm doing, and you can actually chant along if you like. For those of you guys who are online, you can find these chanting sheets at buddhadailywisdom.com. Click on free books, and then down towards the bottom, you'll see it there. If you end up getting one of these chanting sheets, you're going to see that there's a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha in these chants. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants himself, because the Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me. This would be the ego if somebody did this. But instead, where chanting came from during the lifetime of the Buddha and how he actually used it is he used it to help his students commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. And this was a learning tool or as a learning device. So if you decide to chant along, it's important to understand that it's not a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. There's none of those kinds of things in the teachings of the Buddha. If you're seeing any of those kinds of things in the teachings of the Buddha, those are drastic misunderstandings of his teachings, because the Buddha never taught any rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer as part of his teachings. But I use these chants because it helps to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. It kind of exercises the mind, helps bringing awareness to the mind and awareness to the breath as you ease into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be providing you some guidance to be able to help you during the meditation. It's kind of like instructing you and guiding you and teaching you all at the same time. So as I'm doing that, you hear me kind of speaking as we're meditating together. Everyone here at the temple and everyone online will be meditating, and I'll just be kind of teaching you for a period of time as we're meditating together. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating. Everyone here and at home will just all be meditating together. During that period of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a bird chirping, a dog barking, someone here might cough or sneeze. You're not going to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. If your mind has a craving for permanent quietness, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. This is the reason why you can eliminate your discontent feelings, because it's your mind that's actually causing these feelings. The mind craves permanence while you live in an impermanent world. Things are constantly changing around you, but the mind craves for things to be permanent. So if someone's in meditation with a craving for permanent silence while they live in an impermanent world, then they're going to cause their mind to be frustrated because their mind's not getting what it wants. So during that period of quietness, just know that you'll hear certain sounds. They're going to arise, they're going to change, they're going to fade away because they're impermanent. And you can understand the world's functioning exactly the way it was intended to function. And now you can reside with peace and joy, understanding the world around you. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand what the Pali Canon and English study group is. Then in terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times. It's kind of like having a tool belt, and you use these different tools at different times in your journey to enlightenment. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So I'll give you guys a little bit of guidance on that. And then there's other courses and retreats that I share where I teach these other positions. It's important to understand that there isn't just one way to sit in meditation. If that was the case, that would be permanence, where we live in an impermanent world and each individual person is going to find different things to be comfortable. So it's important that your body's not painful, but it's also not luxurious either. You'd like to be in the middle where the body's comfortable. So you could be sitting on the floor, maybe in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of help soften your seat a bit. And then if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross leg position, you might just decide to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, again, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it, but it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you find whatever's comfortable for you, because again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. What I'm sharing with you here are just suggestions or recommendations that you might consider. And if you're going to sit in a chair or on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, you can also sit however you're comfortable. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed. So this is an option for you as well. And then you could put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect with your sternum up and the shoulders back. This will help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation so you can actively train the mind. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because not only will it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to start with some chanting to ease us into meditation. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'll come back in with the guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakava Wat Tung Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma sati sata tava manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm sharing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโพตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาตัมโมดามังนามาสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตวามนุสนังปุตโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation, once again, welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. As I was mentioning, today is our Pali Canon English study group where I help you guys to understand the path to enlightenment through studying the original words of the Buddha. We have various programs here where we help students to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings can actually be eliminated from the human mind because it's the mind itself that's actually causing these feelings. Oftentimes what people think is it's the outside world that's causing these feelings. You might think it's your mom and dad that are annoying you, or your brothers and sisters are frustrating you, or your boss is irritating you, or something of this nature. But it's actually your own mind that's causing these feelings. Your mind has what's called craving, desire, attachment. There's longing, there's yearning, there's wanting things to be a certain way. The mind's craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. If the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy or excited. It gets pleasant feelings. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. You can see this in your own life. If you take an example from your own life where you've recently been angry or frustrated or irritated, you can look at it for yourself and you can see that there was something your mind was longing, yearning for. And if you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy. But since you didn't get what you wanted, your mind was experiencing anger, sadness, or frustration. You can take a moment right now and think about that and look at a recent situation. Maybe you were so excited to come to Thailand, and when you showed up to the airport, maybe your flight was delayed or it was canceled, and the mind maybe got angry or frustrated about that. That's the mind craving permanence, wanting every single airplane to take off on time, when this just isn't possible. There's going to be weather issues, there's going to be crew issues, there's going to be maintenance issues. This is all impermanence. The mind is craving permanence while it lives in an impermanent world. You can see this if you've been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend. Maybe when you guys were together, there was a certain amount of comfort when you guys were together, certain pleasant feelings you were getting. But then when you guys broke up, you might have been angry or sad or frustrated. The mind might have been bored or lonely or missing this person. This is the mind craving permanence, wanting this person to be in your life permanently. Oftentimes people think this is their love or their care that is causing this. Love and care actually doesn't cause painful feelings. That love and care is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, and it doesn't actually cause painful feelings. It's the craving for permanence. If you have a brand new car and maybe you park it at a store and you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. If you're getting frustrated there, it's not the scratch or the person who scratched your car. It's the mind craving permanence, wanting this car to look permanently beautiful when it's not possible. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. You live in an impermanent world while the unenlightened mind holds on and craves permanence. So this meditation we just did, breathing mindfulness meditation, that's training your mind to let go, let go, let go. So 10, 15, 20, 30 times during your meditation, you needed to let go. This is actually really good for your mind. So if you had a lot of thoughts during that meditation, you're not bad at meditation. This is what the unenlightened mind does. It just has all these random thoughts. Or you might have had a thought and you might have followed it for a period of time, and then you realize you were meditating and you came back to the breath. So the goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. The goal is to train your mind to notice them sooner and sooner and let them go easier and easier, so that now you've been exercising the mind with your meditation consistently over the course of your life, training your mind to let go. When you're out and about in the world and you're noticing anger arising, you can let go, right? You can let go. And that's what's going to restore the peace and the joy back to the mind. Because if you take that example of the boyfriend or girlfriend where you were angry or frustrated when you guys broke up, at some point your mind let go. You're like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. Or you were like, you know what? If she wants to move to a different part of the world, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back into the world or into the mind. So the problem in the unenlightened mind is that it has craving, desire, attachment. It's holding on and craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. And as long as your mind is continuing to do this, you'll continue to have anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings. But you can actually uproot the causes and conditions that are producing these discontent feelings through training of the mind. And this is what's going to actually help you to get to the point where the mind's completely peaceful and joyful, the enlightened mental state. The Buddha discovered 10 individual pollutions in the mind. And when you uproot these pollutions out of the mind, that's where the mind experiences the peace and the joy. It's a permanent mental state called enlightenment through purification of the mind. And by uprooting those pollutions out of the mind will start performing optimally, where it'll be focused, concentrated. You'll have clarity of mind and deep memory. And your personal, professional relationships will really be blossoming because you won't have this bitterness and hostility and harshness in the way that you interact with people. You'll notice that you're not even in a bad mood, that it's physically impossible for you to have a bad mood by the time you train your mind to enlightenment. So in the various programs that we have here, I help students to be able to understand this path of how to train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state. And on Sundays and Wednesdays, we have something called our group learning program, where each Sunday I go chapter by chapter in this book. It's titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. And on Wednesdays, I guide students in meditation and then open up to any and all questions that they have. We do meditation meditation actually pretty much in all of the classes that I teach. Even on Sundays, we do meditation and there's questions as well. But on Sundays, I share a topic from that book. And this Sunday, tomorrow, we're in chapter 21 of the book. It's titled Do No Harm. What is the future of the planet? This is where I'm going to help students to be able to understand this topic as it relates to their journey to enlightenment. We're actually coming to an end of this program. It's a 7-month program, and we're going to be restarting it from the very beginning in January. You can join this program at any time. It's actually a really great place to start and progress towards understanding the path to enlightenment, where a program like this is taught a little bit different. All our other programs and courses and retreats, we have a more of a traditional approach to helping you to learn, where I teach for 15, 20, 30 minutes. I open up for questions and teach another 15, 20, 30 minutes and open up for questions. Where in this program on Saturdays, what we do is we explore all the other books of our book series, volumes 2 through 13. We do this in more of a study group where I invite students here at the temple and those of you guys that are joining in Zoom to be able to volunteer to read a chapter from our book. This is actually the words of the Buddha, where you can actually read this. This is just, you see, just kind of like a half a page where a student will read this. Then I'm going to share some teachings on that. Then I'm going to open up to whatever questions you guys have. So if you guys would like to volunteer to read this, all you need to do is get a microphone here in the middle of the room in the white bowl, take it back to your seat, press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on, and then you can hold this up to your chin and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you because you might have more than one question, and you can use that, or you can share it with people around you as they have a question. And then if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll help make sure we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then for anybody who's online, you can volunteer to read these chapters by raising your hand electronically in Zoom and then unmuting your microphone, and we'll be able to hear you that way. And then for questions online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and we'll be able to handle your question that way. So I'll show you guys how this program works. And just so you guys know, as a heads up, this isn't where someone would typically start in their journey to enlightenment in the Saturday Pali Canon English study group. They usually start in one of our other courses or retreats or one of our other programs, but you guys will learn plenty today. But just understand that this isn't where people will typically start because there's various programs that will help you to lay a foundation. We're actually in volume 13 here, chapter 21. So we're in the very last book. We're actually going to be restarting this program from the beginning in January as well. But again, people can really start these programs at any point that they would like. You don't need to start at the beginning, but you can start at the beginning because they're restarting in January. So is there anyone who would like to volunteer to read this first chapter? Yeah, Nancy. By the way, if it's getting cold for you guys back there, you're welcome to adjust the air conditioning. There's a remote control back there by the light switch because I can feel that cool air coming over here. I see some of you guys putting on jackets and stuff, so feel free to adjust it if you'd like to.
The A stands. Monks, there are these A stands pollutions. What 8? First, non-recitation is the stand of chanting. 2, lack of upkeep is the stand of houses. 3, laziness is the stand of beauty. 4, heedlessness is the stand of a god. 5, misconduct is the stand of a woman, a person. 6, selfishness is the stand of a donor. 7, evil, unwholesome qualities are stands in this world and the next. 8, ignorance, unknowing of the true reality is a stand more significant than these, the very words of stands. These monks are the 8 stands.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. So here, this is a discourse from the Buddha helping you to understand certain aspects of the unenlightened mind that he's referring to as stains, because what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're purifying your mind. As you're uprooting these causes and conditions, these pollutions, these stains, then the mind is becoming more peaceful, more joyful. It's becoming bright and cheerful and radiant and uplifted. And that's how the mind's actually experiencing the improvement, where oftentimes people go through life and learning things like this. They're believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when they die, or they have all these rules and commandments that they're trying to follow. That's not what the Buddha taught. He's actually teaching you about your mind and what's causing your mind to experience things like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And then he's giving you the tools and the techniques of how to uproot those pollutions so that now you can experience more and more of the peace and joy. That's what a Buddha does, is they figure out how to get to that enlightened mental state by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. And then they help other people throughout the rest of their life to be able to understand how to get to that enlightened mental state. And then they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So here, these are certain stains that the Buddha is talking about, certain things that need to be improved about the human mind in order to be able to make their way to enlightenment. So this first one where he's saying non-recitation is the stain of chanting. This was something that was needed during the lifetime of the Buddha. In order to get to enlightenment, you needed to be able to chant, because all of his teachings were oral, that they didn't have the ability to write things down in a book. They didn't have YouTube or podcasts 2,500 years ago. So that's the way we study the teachings nowadays in order to be able to commit them to memory. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, it was chanting. That was the way that they actually were able to remember the teachings, committing them to memory, because that's how you actually practice the teachings. That's where the real transformation is occurring to your mind and your life as you're practicing the teachings. So they needed to recite the teachings orally through chanting in order to be able to commit them to memory and actually practice them. So if somebody didn't chant, if they weren't interested in chanting during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would never get to enlightenment because they had no way of actually remembering the teachings and committing them to their memory. But today, you don't need to chant to actually get to enlightenment. You can actually study books and you can study YouTube videos and things of this nature. We still use chanting, and chanting is still around in order to get more benefit out of the meditation, but it wouldn't be required for somebody to chant in order to be able to get to enlightenment. So I teach students how to chant, but I let them know that it's not required for them to be able to chant in order to get to enlightenment. So I usually encourage students to try it for a few weeks and see what they think about it. And then as they are chanting, they can see how it affects their mind, and then they can make a choice of whether or not they'd like to still do it or not. I still chant because, like I mentioned, it's very beneficial for one to chant, but you wouldn't have to chant in order to get to enlightenment. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, he saw this as a stain. If somebody wasn't willing to chant, then they weren't going to be able to learn the teachings, commit them to memory, practice the teachings, then train their mind and uproot these pollutions to then be able to experience enlightenment. Then he's talking about this lack of upkeep is a stain of houses. You know, if you have a room or a house and it's in disarray, this is indicative of what's going on in one's mind. If your mind has all kinds of, erroneous thoughts, and it's just like thought, you might find that when you take care of your living environment, that you're maybe not taking care of it as much because you're not attending to your living environment. And this is actually contributing to one's discontentedness, because when you come back to a clean room or a clean house and your house is organized and things look nice, it actually is helpful for your mind. It doesn't put so much burden on your mind. Whereas if you come into your house and it's really messy and you've got stuff all over the place, this can really tax your mind a lot. So by having a nice upkeep of your house or your room, it allows your mind to be at ease when you enter into that space, and you'll find that it promotes more peacefulness and joy in the mind. Then he talks about this laziness as a stain of beauty. If we're dull, if we're lethargic, if we're unmotivated, unenthusiastic, without ambition or motivation, then an individual is not going to be able to move their life forward. In order to move your life forward, it's not going to be good luck or bad luck. It's not going to be destiny or fate. It's not God or some entity called the universe, and it's not other people that are going to create a wonderful life for you. If you would like to create a wonderful life, you're going to need to make decisions for yourself to improve your life, because there is no such thing as good luck or bad luck or destiny or fate, or this being of God isn't controlling what you experience on a day-to-day basis. And it's not some entity called the universe or other people that are causing you to experience the things that you experience. Everything we experience in life is based on our decisions. And if we choose to be lazy and dull and lethargic, then we're not going to be able to move our life forward through making wise decisions. But if we learn about how to make wise decisions and we build energy in the mind to have vigor and vitality, determination, enthusiasm, ambition, and motivation, not chasing after things and not being dull and lazy, but instead being in the middle where we can gradually walk towards wise decision making, and we can implement wise decisions in our life, and we can move our life forward. And the Buddha encourages you to have that ambition and enthusiasm in the mind. But if we're lazy, if we're just sitting around being lazy, it actually affects the physical body and the way that the body looks, the facial expressions and the body itself, because there's just this dullness and this lethargic condition, right? But you're also not interested in just go all the time too, because that's going to affect your health and the condition of your mind as well. So the Buddha is teaching this middle way where you can gradually work towards goals, objectives, and interests through wise decision making. And sometimes part of that decision making is you're going to need to rest. You're going to need to relax. So being lazy is like just sitting around for hour upon hour, day upon day, week upon week, not really doing much in your life and allowing your life to just stagnate, right? You're not interested in your life stagnating. You would actually like to make decisions to move it forward. And if you're contemplating certain decisions about jobs or relationships or where to live, it's understandable that you're taking your time to look at those things, but at some point, you're going to need to start putting decisions behind those things in order to move your life forward so that it doesn't stagnate. So the Buddha is talking about laziness here as a stain. Then he's talking about heedlessness. What heedlessness is this is where the mind is unattentive or unalert. This is where the mind lacks mindfulness or awareness of mind. This is typically induced by substances. Someone might indulge in drugs or alcohol or things of this nature. Or even nowadays, we have substances like caffeine that can produce heedlessness, where the mind is inattentive or unalert. It's shaken up. The caffeine can take the mind into this excited state with lots of energy, but then it crashes after that. So you need to pay attention to the substances that you're putting into the body, because if you're training the mind to get to this enlightened mental state, you're going to need to have mindfulness, which is awareness of mind. You're going to need to be aware of the thoughts and ideas, the feelings that you're having in your mind, so that now you can skillfully work with your mind to be able to eliminate unwholesome qualities and cultivate wholesome qualities. But if your mind is heedless, and you're putting substances into the body in order to produce that heedlessness, you're actually walking in the opposite direction of enlightenment. So the Buddha refers to this as a stain of a guard. When he talks about a guard, he talks about mindfulness or awareness of mind as being a guard for your mind. Just like a security guard would look over a certain property and ensure that this certain property is protected from theft or other things like that. Your mindfulness or awareness of mind is looking over your mind and protecting your mind, because wherever you see an unwholesome quality come into your mind, with your mindfulness, you can see that unwholesome quality and you can apply what's called right effort to cut that off and let it go and eliminate it out of the mind. That's why you're training your mind with breathing mindfulness meditation, that you're training your mind to let go, let go, let go, because you're building this internal mechanism in your mind so that when you notice with your mindfulness that you're having an unwholesome thought, you can then let it go. And if you do this enough over the course of your life, you won't have any unwholesome thoughts any longer. You can purify your mind where you don't experience those unwholesome thoughts, where you're like judging other people, and maybe you're looking down on people, thinking you're better than them. Or maybe you put yourself below people, thinking that everyone else is so far above you. Or maybe you're getting angry or frustrated or agitated in certain experiences. You don't have to experience these feelings. You can actually eliminate them from the mind. But most people don't even realize there's a way to do that. You just walk through life continuing to get angry, maybe blaming other people for the feelings that you're having. But there's a way for you to escape out of that. Just like you opt out of a mailing list from an email list and you unsubscribe, you can unsubscribe to these feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. It's not just clicking a button. It's not as easy as that, but there is training and growth and development that you can experience to be able to train your mind to eliminate all the discontent feelings. But if your mind is heedless, you're not going to be able to do that, because you can't observe your mind, notice these unwholesome qualities, and get rid of them. And you're not going to be able to see the wholesome qualities to support them, encourage them, and help them to grow in your mind. So this guard that the Buddha is talking about is the mindfulness or awareness of mind that's overlooking your mind, and now it's protecting your mind, because anytime you see an unwholesome thought coming in, you can get rid of it. And eventually, you'll be able to get to the point where those unwholesome thoughts don't even arise. Then selfishness is the stain of a donor. This is the whole reason why this chapter is in this book, because this book is actually titled Generosity. It's our 13th book of our book series. And this selfishness is where the mind is holding on, doesn't want to share with other people, with other beings. That's what happens when you have craving, desire, attachment in the mind. When the mind's holding on and craving permanence, you'll tend to be selfish. It's like, well, if I'm going to spend 3 hours doing this, I want this in return. If I spend 3 days doing this, I want this in return. And the mind will hoard things, very much like an animal. We're not animals, we're human beings, but animals will hoard its food. It won't want to share, or it will have a certain territory in the forest that this is my territory. And if another animal comes in that area, it doesn't want that animal in there, and it'll growl and roar and try to get that animal away, because it's hoarding something. It's holding on to something, craving this permanence. And that's what the human mind does in the unenlightened state. It will function like an animal. We are not animals. We are human beings. And the path to enlightenment is to become a better and better human being. So you're going to need to shed these animalistic instincts that the mind has in the unenlightened state to become this better and better human being where you're comfortable sharing with others. So the Buddha describes this selfishness as a stain because it's hindering you from experiencing cheerfulness and gladness and brightness and the peace and the joy, because you can be joyful in sharing with others. But when you hoard things, your mind's going to have that darkness and that disgruntledness in your mind. But when you share with others, you can be joyful in giving and sharing with others. And this is a practice that you can train your mind to do. And it's an addition to the breathing mindfulness meditation, that if you're practicing generosity, this is training your mind to let go and help your mind to be able to get free of its cravings, desires, attachments, which is the cause of all your discontent feelings. So if you're interested in eliminating things like anger, sadness, frustration in others, sure, you're going to need to practice breathing mindfulness meditation, but you're going to need to practice generosity too, where you're giving and sharing with the people around you, your parents, your siblings, your co-workers, your neighbors, and you can share your time, effort, energy, and resources. It doesn't have to always be sharing your money. It can be sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources. And you would like to do this without any expectation of anything in return. If you have an expectation of something in return, you're not practicing pure generosity yet. The mind still wants something. So for example, if you were going to share your time and you were walking into a store and you were going to hold the door for somebody and you're letting those people walk in before you, if you're standing there with an expectation that they'll say thank you and they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated or irritated or annoyed, because the mind's not practicing pure generosity. You still want something. The mind is craving permanence. The mind wants every single person who walks through the door while I'm holding it to say thank you. But that's the mind craving permanence. Maybe when you walk through the door and somebody's holding the door for you, you say thank you, but not everybody will, because of the universal truth of impermanence. Some people don't even see you standing there, perhaps. So if you're standing there holding the door wanting a thank you, then your mind still has craving, desire, attachment, and you'll cause your mind to be frustrated. Not everybody's going to say thank you. It's just not possible. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because I would advise you, if you're walking through the door and you see someone holding it, it would be wise to say thank you. But the thing is that you live in an impermanent world, and not everybody practices that. If everybody practiced that, that would be permanence. So you're going to need to share your time, effort, energy, and resources with the people around you frequently on a daily basis, training your mind to give and share and be joyful in sharing with others. And this is actually going to help your mind to let go. So you need to be able to practice generosity without even an expectation of a thank you. That you're just doing this for one reason: to enhance the quality of your mind. You're going to see perhaps some discourses today where the Buddha talks about that, where the ultimate goal of practicing generosity is to enhance the quality of your mind. That's the only reason to practice it, right? If you're wanting or expecting something from somebody, you're not practicing generosity. My son had a friend that came over last week for a sleepover, and it was kind of late at night. It was like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and they were like, hey, can we go to 7-Eleven and buy some snacks? And I was like, well, my money's upstairs. I don't know if I'm going to have to go upstairs and get the money. And his friend spoke up and he was like, oh, I've got some money. I'll pay for the snacks. I was like, oh, okay, that's very nice of you. Thank you for doing that. And they were like, all right. So they trucked off to 7-Eleven, which is right in front of our village. And then they came back with all their snacks and their eating. Of course, they enjoy all that stuff late at night like that. And then about 2 days later, my son was showing me his bank account, and he had given his friend 30 baht. And I was like, what was that for? And he was like, oh, my friend wanted to buy something, and he asked me for money. And he told me since he bought me snacks that I should give him this 30 baht. And I was like, oh, that's not pure generosity. Your friend gave you money for snacks, but yet he expected you to give him this 30 baht to buy something for himself. And he said, yeah, that's what he did. And I was like, okay. So then I gave him some guidance of how to deal with those things in the future. But that's what the mind does when it doesn't understand the wisdom of generosity, and that you need to practice generosity without any expectation of anything in return, is it'll give something up front, but then on the backside, the mind expects something from somebody. So you're not interested in practicing generosity in that way because it's actually not enhancing the quality of your mind. In order to get rid of this stain of selfishness, you need to train your mind to fully let go, where you don't have any expectation of anything in return when you're practicing generosity. Then the Buddha says here, evil, unwholesome qualities are a stain in this world, in the next. Evil, unwholesome qualities are things like craving and anger and things of this nature. The mind having certain unwholesome qualities like jealousy and resentment and hostility and bitterness. This is just causing difficulties in your life. When you're experiencing anger and frustration in your mind, you'll tend to push people away, pushing your friends or family out of your life. And you can see that this didn't work to solve your problem because you still get angry, you still get frustrated. Or you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, almost like an animal growling and roaring at another person. And now it damages your relationships, and maybe your relationship ends because of that bitterness and hostility. Or you might put your expectations on people, try to pressure them and control them to do things your way. So as long as these unwholesome qualities are in your mind, you're going to have difficulties and struggles in this life to be able to get along and be harmonious with other people, because you're going to be pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or putting your expectations on them and trying to control them. And people might even be doing this to you too. So as long as you have these evil, unwholesome qualities in your mind and you haven't purified your mind, you're going to have difficulties and struggles in this life, but it's actually going to produce rebirth as well, where you're now going to experience difficulties and struggles in those lives as well. This cycle of rebirth is something that you can actually independently verify. Oftentimes people don't have that wisdom of how to do that, and they just believe that they only have one life. But the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. With belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. But the teachings of the Buddha are independently verifiable, and you can gain the wisdom to understand how to verify this cycle of rebirth that the mind is in, and continuing to experience rebirth over and over and over and over again. So the goal of this path is to purify the mind so that you can see that you're becoming more and more peaceful in this life. The Buddha's teachings aren't about an afterlife and getting to a wonderful life after this. The Buddha's teachings are about getting to a wonderful life right now in this life. But you can't do that as long as you have unwholesome qualities in your mind. It's going to affect you in this life. And if you haven't purified your mind, there's going to be future lives as well. That's why he's saying that it's going to affect you in this world and the next, as the individual is continuing to be reborn. And then finally, the last stain that he's talking about here, this is the stain of all stains. It's referred to as ignorance, but remember, we're translating from the words of the Buddha into English, and I don't really think that this is the best way to use this particular word. It's not really the way a Buddha or an enlightened being would talk, because in ignorance, if someone was to call someone ignorant, this is like a derogatory word. This is a diminishing and degrading way to refer to someone. And an enlightened being and a Buddha wouldn't refer to another being as ignorant. So that's why I use the phrase unknowing of true reality, confusion, lack of wisdom, misunderstanding, or misperception. This is what the unenlightened mind has, is it has this lack of wisdom. And because of its lack of wisdom, it continues to stay stuck in this continuous cycle of experiencing anger and sadness and frustration over and over and over again. That you've been living life to this point just thinking that that's normal. But now you're in a place where people understand how to train their mind and how to get to this peace and joy. In fact, that might have been one of the reasons why you came to Thailand to begin with, because maybe you heard the people here are quite peaceful and joyful. It's the land of smiles. That's what some people call Thailand, the land of smiles. Well, it's really easy to smile when you don't have anger and hostility and bitterness in your mind. So if you'd like to understand that peacefulness and joy that you see in many, many Thai people here in Thailand, it's because they've cultivated their mind to a certain degree, cultivating wisdom about the world around them. And now it's easy to navigate the world through these natural laws. That's what the Buddha did, is he taught these natural laws of existence. That when the mind is struggling and having difficulties in your day-to-day life, this is because you just have a lack of wisdom. You don't understand the world that you live in. It's like when we were growing up as a child, we lacked wisdom of the natural law of gravity. That's why we had struggles and difficulties with it. We fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, we broke our toys. And because of this, we were angry, we were frustrated, we were agitated or annoyed because we didn't understand the world that we lived in. And that natural law of gravity was affecting us whether we were aware of it or not. But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom of this natural law, and we started making wiser and wiser decisions. And that's why now we can climb ladders, we can ride bicycles, we can fly all over the world, because you might say that we're fully awake to the natural law of gravity. We make different choices now. We tie our shoes tighter. We look at the surface of the sidewalk as we're walking. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around like a kid all the time. And that's why we're completely fine with the natural law of gravity now. By the age of 10, 12, 14 years old, we didn't struggle with that natural law anymore because we cultivated wisdom about it. And now we can navigate the world peacefully. Well, there's these other natural laws that the Buddha taught that are affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. But as long as the mind is ignorant to them or lacking this wisdom or having confusion or misunderstanding, you'll go through the world experiencing anger and sadness and frustration. And this is the mind struggling to live in a world that it doesn't understand. Because it lacks wisdom about these natural laws, you will think that your decisions are all the best decisions ever, and you put those out into the world, and now what comes back to you are these unwholesome results, or this unwholesome karma, this cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. That if you have wisdom, you can make wise decisions, and you'll experience wholesome results. This is the natural law of karma. Some people refer to this as karma. But in the original teachings of the Buddha, it's referred to as kamma. This is the Pali word, where the karma word, this is coming from the Sanskrit language. So what this means is cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. It's nothing mystical or magical. It's not about punishments and rewards. It's not about who's at fault or who's to blame. There's no being who's overseeing this and, controlling what anybody experiences. It's your decisions that are leading to any particular result that you experience in life. And when you have a lack of wisdom, or you have this unknowing of true reality, or this ignorance in the mind, you'll tend to go out into the world making unwise decisions, and you'll experience unwholesome results. But there is a better way of life, and that's what the Buddha taught, is this better way of life is to awaken or cultivate wisdom about these natural laws so that now you can navigate the world with wisdom, and now you can experience more and more peacefulness, just like you do with the natural law of gravity. So he's describing this ignorance as the stain of all stains, essentially, right? This is like the worst stain of all, because as long as the mind is having this lack of wisdom with your ego, you'll think that what you're doing is so great and so wonderful, and everybody else around you is the problem. And now you'll go out into the world being angry and frustrated and bitter because people aren't doing things your way. And when people do things your way, you'll be happy and you'll be excited and you'll like those people. But when people don't do things your way, you will dislike them and you'll have anger and frustration towards them. And now it's going to come out through your actions, through your intentions, speech, and actions. And now as you're being bitter and harsh and hostile to them, now you're experiencing that coming back to you, because the mind's putting out harm, harm will come back to you. This is the natural law of Gama, of cause and effect. But when you awaken to this natural law and you have wisdom about it, you'll navigate the world and you won't be harming others. So therefore, harm won't be coming back to you. So that's why he calls this the stain of all stains, because as long as the mind stays with this lack of wisdom, you'll just keep experiencing unwholesome results over and over and over and over again. And this is why the path to enlightenment isn't about belief. Everything on the path to enlightenment is about cultivation of wisdom, because the way you get rid of this ignorance is to cultivate wisdom. If you know the truth about the world and you're not operating through belief, now you know true reality. You can see truly, clearly how this world is constructed, and now you can navigate it peacefully. But with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because, again, somebody convinced you to believe it or you convinced yourself to believe it. But when you get wisdom, you can navigate the world more and more wisely, more and more peacefully, and now you experience more and more wholesome results in your day-to-day life. So these are 8 stains that the Buddha is describing that an individual would learn and understand, and then you're going to need to eliminate these stains as part of the path to enlightenment. So let me know if you guys have questions here. Remember here, you guys can use the microphones in the white bowl. If you're online and you'd like to ask questions, you can put it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask questions that way. Does anybody here online have questions? Yes, ma'am.
Is number 5 a reference to monks being celibate?
Oh, I skipped right over that one.
Yes.
Misconduct is the stain of a woman, a person. So he must have been talking to a woman here, because what he would do is he would teach to whoever was asking him questions. So it must have been a female who asked them the question. Okay. So that's why he said the stain of a woman, because he would have been replying to that woman, right? So that's why I put it here, a person, because it applies to everybody. So misconduct would be our moral conduct, our speech, our actions, and our livelihood. That's how we interact with the world. Mm-hmm. And if we have misconduct, meaning we don't have the wisdom of what's wise and unwise, then we're going to cause harm. And as we cause harm, now it causes us difficulties and struggles in our day-to-day life. So I actually ended up teaching about that without actually calling this out. But that's why he has a woman here, because he would have been replying to a woman, because it's for men too. It's our stain as well if we're having misconduct. Leo?
I wanted to ask, how did you guide your son when the friend expected from him something
from
back?
that example?
Or how would you guide other people?
In that specific example that I gave when I was talking. So him and I just talked and we just discussed what is pure generosity and helping him understand what is pure generosity. And he had already understood generosity, because I questioned him, because I had taught him before, and I asked him, what is generosity? How would you practice generosity? When you practice generosity, do you expect something back from other people? So I made sure he first understood what generosity was, and then I helped him to be able to identify when somebody else isn't practicing pure generosity and how to deal with that. And I suggested to him that in the future, if one of his friends did something like this, that he said, "Oh, you were expecting me to give you this money because you bought me this over here," and then how to talk that out with this person and help them to understand that what they did was not pure generosity. Because each one of these situations is different. You can't give a stock answer of exactly how to handle every single situation because the variables are different, but we talk through different scenarios about how he could handle that better in the future. Because what I recommended to him is in the future, if he had this kind of situation, is to not give that person the money, because in that situation, this person was having a craving and they weren't practicing pure generosity. And if he continued to function this way, then more and more his friends would be buying him things, and then they would be asking him for money later. And he's just going to keep experiencing this over and over and over again. And it's not going to produce healthy relationships for him in his day-to-day life. Mm-hmm.
we would need to know how to give this person the wisdom, right? Because they might get upset because they don't understand why this guy is not giving him or this money back, or why he's not.
You
know.
can't give somebody wisdom. In order for someone to cultivate wisdom, they need to be able to learn, they need to be able to reflect on something, and they need to be able to practice it and be able to see the truth for themselves. That's how someone gets to wisdom. But you can have conversation to be able to help the person to be able to see something if they choose to see it. But you can't push it on them, you can't force it on them, because that would be your craving, that would be your conceit, your ego trying to push it on somebody and force it on somebody. But instead, it's a way of asking questions. So if you said to me, hey, David, can you give me this 300 baht in order to buy this food? I would say, why, Leo? And you might say, oh, well, I gave you money, 3 days ago in order to do something, and I would like you to give me some money now. I might say, oh, is that why you gave me that? Is because you wanted money from me today? You might say, yeah, that's why I gave it to you. And I would say, oh, well, if I would have known that, I wouldn't have accepted that, which you gave me earlier. Because when I practice generosity with someone, I give without any expectation of anything in return. So I would be talking about myself in this situation rather than telling you what you should or shouldn't be doing. I would just describe from this person, this friend. Not that you're a friend, I treat you friendly, but you're not a friend, you're a student. But if it was, this friend, I'm talking to them about what I do as a person. And then if they choose to learn from that in the way that I choose to practice, then that's what their choice is. But I'm not pushing it on them or forcing it on them in that situation. I'm just describing for them how I choose to practice generosity. And then it's up to them to choose to be able to learn from that or not. And then if they get angry or they get frustrated that I'm sharing that with them, they're causing that themselves, right? And if they choose to push me away and they're not interested in being friends with me anymore, hey, that's their choice, right? If you're not clinging to the relationship, craving for it to be permanent, when they get angry and they get frustrated, if they choose to push you away, okay, so be it. That wasn't really the best friend anyway, because they're not practicing pure generosity in this situation. They're expecting something from you. And as long as you allow people to put expectations on you and you adopt those expectations for yourself, you'll never experience peace and harmony in your relationships, because they're going to keep having expectations of you and you're going to keep working hard to get up to those expectations. And then they're going to be happy for a period of time, but then their expectations are going to change. And now you're going to have to be fighting to get up to that point. And that's not a good way to live life. So if you're in relationships where people are putting expectations on you and trying to control you and tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing, maybe you have parents or siblings or life partners that are choosing to do these kinds of things, you need to make sure that you're not adopting their expectations within your own mind of what you expect of yourself. Because your parents might have an expectation here. If you keep struggling to get up to that expectation, they'll be happy for a period of time, maybe like a week or two or a month or two, but then their expectations are going to change and they're going to want more. And now you're struggling to get up to that point. It's kind of like feeding a monster. If you keep feeding this monster, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So when people put expectations on you, if you feed that and you try to fulfill those, they're just going to keep putting expectations on you more and more and more and more. So in order for this to occur where people aren't putting expectations on you, you're going to need to practice where you're not putting expectations on other people as well and trying to control them. So in this kind of situation, a friend who would heed my advice, I would just talk about myself and my own practice rather than putting expectations on them of what I expect them to do, because I don't have any expectations of other people. I just love this person as they are unconditionally. But at the same time, where I see something that is off in their practice and I know this is going to affect our relationship, then I'm going to address it in a way that I can talk about my own practice. And then they might say, oh yeah, I see, that would be better. I probably should have done that. You know what? Never mind, David, you don't need to give me that 100 baht. I should have just practiced generosity. Or they might say, no, this is the way it is. If I give you something, you need to give me something. Oh, is that the way that you're going to function in our relationship? And they're like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, okay, well, never mind then. I think it's better if I just, move on. You have a great day. I would just walk away. at that point. And then they'll be like, what are you talking about? Give me my 100 baht. You know, I gave you this money over there. You got to give me this. Sorry you feel that way. Have a good day. And I would just walk away. Right? If they get angry and they get mad, they're causing it themselves. And at that point, they might even gossip and slander. They might say, oh, this guy took advantage of me. This is what some people will say. They took advantage of me. I had a student one time. She had a boyfriend that she was dating, and she's a single mother. She has 3 young kids. Not anymore. They're not young. But anyway, she was dating this guy, and he bought her kids winter jackets. Right. And then about 3 months later, she broke up with him because she wasn't interested in this relationship any longer. And he accused her of taking advantage of him. And she contacted me and she's like, I don't think I took advantage of this guy. Like, we were in our relationship and he bought these things for my children. And I even told him at the time, you know, don't worry, you don't need to buy these jackets. I'm going to buy them jackets myself. And he was like, no, I want to buy these jackets. So she let him buy the jackets. But now when she broke up with him, he was saying, oh, you took advantage of me. Well, this man didn't practice pure generosity because he gave those jackets with the expectation that you were going to be my girlfriend and you're now going to be with me long term. And I want something from you, probably sex, right? So in this situation, his mind wasn't practicing pure generosity. He still had craving, desire, attachment. He didn't get what he wanted, what he expected, and now he was angry. He was frustrated. He was bitter and hostile and harsh with this person. And this person was having difficulty seeing true reality here. So that's why she contacted me as a student to be able to understand this more fully and, you know, how she should practice this in the future. And so you can have these kinds of situations and where you see people having those kinds of things where they're craving and putting expectations on you and trying to control you, and they're wanting and expecting things from you. This is going to produce discontentedness because sometimes they're going to get what they want from you and sometimes they're not. And when they're not getting what they want from you, they're going to get angry and frustrated. And now they're going to blame it on you. They're going to think that you're the one who's causing their anger. And then they're either going to push you aside, they're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they're going to start trying to control you and put even more expectations on you. And you would like to step away from that type of relationship. Or you can do this kind of thing that we're talking about here, where you can maybe try to help them see the truth, but you need to do that skillfully. And oftentimes when someone's first starting off on the path, they don't have the ability to do that. But more and more you can get that skillfulness, and then this person might choose to learn, but it's their choice of whether they choose to learn or not. Because you putting your expectations on them or trying to force them to do things your way would just produce unwholesome results for you. You can always walk away. You're not causing any harm by walking away. And if they get angry when you walk away, that shows you that they're having craving, desire, attachment. They're holding on to you, craving permanence. So you're not causing any harm by choosing to walk away. That's an option. You know, depending on where you are with your practice, you know, you can potentially try to be skillful and see if you could help this person. But if you don't think you have that ability, you could choose to walk away. If they're like, hey, give me that 100 baht. You know, I bought you dinner last night and, you know, you need to buy me dinner tonight. You could just walk away. You're not causing any harm in that situation, right? And if they get angry and frustrated, like, where are you going? Why are you walking away from me? You know, this is their mind craving. You won't actually get to a healthy relationship in that situation by continuing to stay, right? You need to step away in order for their mind to actually let go. Their mind is going to need to let go and not try to control and force you to do things a certain way. Because as long as you have people like that in your life, they can only be happy if you do things their way. That's the selfishness, right? It's like, you do things my way, I'll be your friend. I'll be nice to you. I'll be friendly with you. But as soon as you stop doing things my way, I'm going to be angry and bitter and hostile and harsh to you. That's the selfishness that the mind has. And you need to be able to see through that so that you don't end up in relationships where people are constantly putting demands on you and expectations on you and wanting you to be a certain way. Because now you're living your life the way they want you to live it, not the way you are interested in living it. And now you'll feel very constrained in this relationship. You're welcome. Okay. I don't see any other questions anywhere. Oh, yes. Do you have a microphone back there? We have a gentleman who's very nice distributing microphones. You didn't realize that was your role today in class, did you? uh,
Is it? Yeah, my question is it wisdom that like if someone set up an expectation, how do you know that this is going to be upper and upper? Is it like natural law or something? Because, for example, if I am a parent, I would definitely don't want my child to go to use drugs. I don't know if that's I would think that it's like a normal expectation. So is this part of like this bad behavior of wanting something?
You need to be able to understand what an expectation is. An expectation is a longing, a yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. And the mind's craving this permanence. As long as you have that, you're never going to get that because the world is impermanent. And as long as you're craving permanence and wanting and expecting people to do things a certain way, you're only going to be able to be happy when they do it your way, right? But then if you're on the other side, using your example as a parent where you could care less about what happens to your child, you're not going to be peaceful and joyful there either. So that's where you'd like to come to the middle, where you have certain goals and objectives, you have guidance, you have wisdom that you know that is wise for your child to practice, but now you need to guide them in being able to do those things through wise decision making. Whereas if you have an expectation, let's use a different example. Let's just say you have an expectation for your child to take out the trash, and you say, hey, daughter and son, I'm going to sleep now. I would like you to take out the trash. And they say, okay, I'll take out the trash. And now you go to sleep, right? When you wake up in the morning and they haven't taken out the trash, if you have an expectation, you'll be angry. You'll be frustrated. And now you're going to be bitter and harsh and hostile to them through your intentions, speech, and actions, and you're going to damage your relationship. But also, if you're all the way over here where you're like, oh, well, they didn't take out the trash, I'm not going to teach them anything else. Now you're not teaching them how to make wise decisions as part of living in a household, right? So you need to come to the middle where you realize, it looks like they forgot to take out the trash. Okay, well, let me wait until they wake up. And when they wake up, I'll have a conversation with them. And then when they come downstairs or wherever they're coming after they wake up, you say, hey, son and daughter, how was your night last night? Oh, it was great, mommy. We watched movies. We played video games. We ate popcorn. Oh, okay. Is there something that you forgot to do last night that mom asked you to do? I don't know, mom. Is there? Well, maybe you just kind of like be a little bit playful and you kind of walk over towards the trash and you're like, I don't know. What is it? Right? Like you can be fun with this thing. And they're like, oh, mom, we forgot to take out the trash. We're so sorry. We'll do that right now. No worries. We'll take it out. So now you just guided them towards making wise decisions in a friendly and polite and a cordial way, rather than demanding it and being angry that they didn't do it your way. So as long as you have an expectation, your people around you aren't going to fulfill that permanently because of the universal truth of impermanence. And you can see that. I see you nodding your head, right? So if you understand expectations and the mind longing, yearning like this, if you feed someone's expectations, they're just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. The monster is going to grow here. And you're just going to find yourself in more and more difficulties and struggles. I'll tell you guys another example from my life. I've shared this before, so some of you guys have heard it. One time, me and my son were at the kitchen table just talking, and we were drinking some water. We had some cups on the table, and my wife came downstairs, and she's like, what are you guys doing with all these cups all over the place? Why don't you put them in the sink? And blah, 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 blah. I need to wash the dishes, and you guys never put your cups in the sink. We just looked at her, right? She went upstairs, and I looked at my son. I was like, you know what we need to do, right? He was like, yeah, I do. I was like, all right, let's go do it. So we went and got every single cup that we could find in the house, and we put them everywhere. We put them on the floor. We put them on the end tables. We put them by the TV. We put them on the sofa. There was all these cups everywhere. And about an hour later, she came back downstairs, and she came downstairs and she looked and she looked. She saw all the cups. You could almost see her mind rewiring itself. And then she just calmly walked away and went back upstairs. right? And we haven't heard anything about these cups because we leave our cup on the table because otherwise we have to wash it like, 8-10 cups a day per person. That's a lot of dishes. So we just use the same cup for like 5-10 days before we actually wash it. So if we would have fed her expectations, if we would have shuddered in fear, oh my gosh, mom's angry, let's put our cups away. Well, it wasn't just going to be the cups. It was going to be the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So out of love and kindness and compassion for mom, we chose to do something different, which provided her the opportunity to train her mind to let go. And that's what we did. Right? So it takes more effort to do these kinds of things, but you'll find that your relationships are more harmonious because now mom understands she's not going to control her son and her husband. And now she doesn't go around trying to control us all the time of what we should or shouldn't be doing. So if you feed someone's expectations, it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing and growing. And you can see this in your own life. If you haven't already seen this, you can actually see it. I discovered this very early in life. When I was about 17 years old, I was hanging out with my friends a lot. And my family came to me and they said, David, you're spending too much time with your guy friends. We think you should go get a girlfriend. You should go get a girlfriend. I was like, all right. After about 2 months or so, I thought about it. I was all right, I'll go get a girlfriend. So I went and got a girlfriend and I started spending time with her. And then they came to me and they said, you know what? We think you're spending too much time with your girlfriend. You should be spending time with us. And I was like, man, you can't make these people happy. So I stopped trying to meet my family's expectations. I even went to my family and I said, hey, just so you guys know, my goal is not to meet your expectations. My goal is to do things the way that I would like to do them and create the kind of life that I would like to create. You guys are living your life and you're making decisions for your life. And that's wonderful for you. You do whatever you think is best, and I'm going to make the decisions that is best for me. But as soon as you guys start putting expectations on me, just understand I'm not going to be trying to meet those expectations. And they were shocked, right? And they were surprised. And they still tried to put expectations on me for many years after that. But each time I never accepted their expectations and I never did it, they slowly learned he's not going to do what we want him to do. He's going to live his life his way. And now my family doesn't put expectations on me ever about anything. So you're going to need to do these types of things in order to help your mind to understand adopting other people's expectations is the last thing you're interested in doing because you're just feeding this monster and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And remember, an expectation is a longing and a yearning, craving, wanting things to be a certain way. And if you do things my way, I'm happy. And if you don't do things my way, I'm going to be angry and frustrated and bitter and hostile with you. That's not the type of thing you're interested in having for yourself, where you have expectations of others, because you're going to be angry and upset in certain situations, but you're also not interested in adopting others' expectations of you and doing things their way, because now they're just going to get more and more and more. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
How about someone do take advantage of your generosity or kindness and drag you to a problem? And after this happens, should I reflect, I did wrong, I lack of wisdom, or I should accept the truth that the generosity, the action have the different or have the consequence, the back consequence, or have the pleasure consequence. They both, I need to realize this, the truth.
If you're practicing pure generosity, it's not possible for someone to take advantage of your generosity, because the only way that you would think that someone's taking advantage of your generosity is if you want something back from them. Because if you're giving to someone, if you're practicing the practice of giving and practicing generosity, you're giving without any expectation of anything in return. You're only giving with the interest in enhancing the quality of your mind. And now what that person chooses to do, That's a choice for them to make. But the only choice you're making is you're choosing to give. So it's not possible for someone to take advantage of this, because if you keep giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, that's your choice. Nobody's forcing you to do that. So if you gave somebody $100 and that was a choice that you made, and then they came back to you and they say, can you give me $200? And you gave it to them, and they asked for $300 and you gave them $300. They're not taking advantage of your generosity. They just keep asking you for money and you keep choosing to give it to them. That's your choice that you're choosing. You can choose at any point to say, I'd really like to give you that money, but I don't have it. Or, I need to check my finances and see if I'm able to give that to you. If I can, I'll let you know. You don't have to give them the money. So if somebody's asking you for something, that's not them taking advantage of you. That's them having craving, desire, attachment, where their mind's longing, yearning, and they're wanting something from you. But it's your choice of whether to give it to them or not, because you can say no if you'd like. But oftentimes when your mind has craving, desire, attachment, you won't feel comfortable to say no. You'll just keep giving. So there's no way for anybody to take advantage of you. If you're making decisions and you're taking responsibility for your own decisions, there's no way for someone to take advantage of you. But if you have an example that you think someone has taken advantage of you, you can share that with me, and I'll help you to be able to see that it's actually your own decisions that are leading to any result.
Okay, I will ask you later because it's a long story. Okay.
So my question is, as someone who receive help or generosity from others, I often feel the need to repay it someday or later on. So so in the previous example, I feel like I'm also feeding other people's expectations in a way. So I wonder if you have any advice or how would you deal with this?
Yeah, so if someone practices generosity with you and gives you something, your mind's adopting the expectation that you now have to give something back. And you need to be able to see pure generosity, that if they're giving you something, you can just accept that gift, and that's fine. You don't need to give them anything back. So the way for your mind to overcome this is you're going to need to be in a situation where people are giving you things and you choose not to give something back. You're going to need to be able to do that multiple times. Maybe sometimes you do give something and maybe sometimes you don't, right? It's kind of like if you go into a restaurant and you have a craving to always tip the waiter. And when you tip the food server, you feel good. And when you don't tip them, you feel bad. What you're going to need to do in these situations is you're going to need to sometimes tip and sometimes don't, and train your mind to be peaceful and joyful, to let go of this craving, because the mind's craving permanence. It thinks that I should always tip the waiter, should always tip the food server, and if I don't, I feel bad. This is the mind craving permanence, and that's why that guilt or shame is in the mind, because it's craving this permanence, and it can only be happy if it gets what it wants, which is I'm going to tip this food server, and when I don't tip this food server, the mind's not getting what it wants, so it experiences this guilt or shame. So you need to actually put the mind in that situation multiple times and train it. No, it's okay if I don't tip sometimes. That's normal. That is impermanence, that the world around us is impermanent. So you're going to need to do the same thing, that when someone's practicing generosity with you, sometimes you practice generosity back, but other times you don't. And you just understand that that's impermanence. The world is impermanent, that you're not going to have this permanence. So now when your mind is in that situation where you're not giving something back and you might feel guilt or something like this, you train your mind to cut that off and let it go. If you're doing the breathing mindfulness meditation and you're practicing generosity yourself, you'll have better ability to let go, so that when that guilt is coming up, you can cut it off and let it go. But if you're not regularly practicing the meditation and all the other teachings of the Buddha, because the Buddha has this core central teaching called the Eightfold Path, that's what you would like to ultimately be learning to get started on the path to enlightenment. If you practice that closely, when you notice the guilt coming up, you can cut it off and let it go. So me just telling you that that's what you need to do, okay, you have that intellectual understanding and you can see through your reflection that, yeah, that would be wise if I cut it off. But the practice part of actually being able to cut it off, that's the piece that's more challenging for you if you're not training your mind with the meditation and all the other teachings. So the core central teaching of the Buddha is called the Eightfold Path. And that's what this first book has in addition to other things. I suggest that you guys start with this, chapter 4 and 5. That's where I cover the Eightfold Path. That's the core central teaching of the Buddha. And I teach this in classes as well. And you can get this book for free. You can download it from our website for free. You can take it and go print it if you like on your own. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing costs so that then we can use your money to go buy additional books, or you can order it on Amazon if you have access to Amazon. That's the best place to get started, because it's one thing to understand this intellectually, but it's a whole other thing to do it. So you need more tools and techniques to be able to help you. Yes, ma'am. Very prompt. You just need to press the button. There's a gray button on there.
Question about how should we see the expectation toward ourselves, because in our daily life we tend to set a lot of like keeping expectation or like objectives about our lives to be like keep chasing certain objective like better job or better life or such to be like a so-called good life, something like that. But if sometimes we cannot achieve that, we feel frustration. That is one thing. And another thing is that if in certain period of time we do not have very clear like direction, then we feel like I got lost in my life. So I wonder how can we see this kind of expectation toward ourselves.
Yeah. So when you're putting expectations on yourself, you're not truly loving yourself, right? Because in this situation where you're burdening yourself with expectations, you'll work really hard to get to that, but you'll only be happy if you get it. And if you don't get it, you'll feel sad or frustrated or angry or some other discontent feeling. And because of the universal truth of impermanence, that the world around you is impermanent, you're not going to always meet your expectations. So if you keep burdening yourself with these expectations, you're just going to keep chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing. And you can only be happy if you get what you want. And sometimes as you're chasing, that craving is going to burn out, and you're going to feel, kind of like worthless, or you're going to feel unmotivated and unenthusiastic to keep walking forward in life. So that's maybe what someone's used to, is putting expectations on themselves and chasing after those, because that's what you might have learned growing up with your parents, that your parents put expectations on you and you get used to chasing. But again, being all the way over here on the other side, where you're not motivated and you're lazy and lethargic, that's not going to produce perfect example or wonderful experiences for you either. So you need to come to the middle where you're gradually working towards goals, objectives, or interest. A goal, objective, or interest is something that you can make wise decisions towards obtaining, and you can maintain your happiness and your joy whether you accomplish it or not. Because sometimes people call things goals, but it's not actually a true goal. It's an expectation. If you're getting happy when you meet your goal and you're sad when you don't meet your goal, that's not a goal. That's an expectation. That's the mind longing, yearning. A true goal is something you can work towards, and you can maintain your joy and your happiness whether you accomplish it or not, because you're not going to accomplish every single goal. So if you're 80% of the way towards your goal and you haven't met your goal, you can maintain your happiness, and you can look at it and be like, I'm 80% of the way there. What should I do here? Well, I can add more resources in order to be able to help me to be able to accomplish this goal. Or I can extend my timeline, giving myself more time to be able to accomplish this. Or you know what? 80% is fine. I don't need to go any further. I've been able to accomplish what I need. I don't really need to push myself to go any further. So let me just stop here, right? This is fine. So this is like wise decision making. Whereas if you're forming your feelings based on whether you get what you want or not, that's the mind being unenlightened and having craving, desire, attachment. But again, if you're over here where you're just dull and lethargic and you're not moving your life forward, you're not going to be peaceful and joyful there either. So you need to be able to learn how to pursue goals, objectives, or interests, but not form your feelings based on whether you accomplish it or not. And that's what the Eightfold Path is going to help you to learn how to do. I used to do this during my life. I used to actually set goals that I knew that I could never make. I used to do this intentionally in order to be able to train my mind to be comfortable with not meeting a goal. But oftentimes when I was doing that, I would get 60, 70, 80% of the way there. And I was like, actually, that's enough. Like, I don't need to go any further with this goal. And I can maintain my joy and I can maintain my happiness. So it's part of your training that you need to learn the Eightfold Path and be able to train your mind in this. But you also need to do things like learn how to set goals and actually not make them, not meet your goals, and be able to maintain your happiness with that. This is a really helpful practice for you. So as you do this, you'll get more and more comfortable with it, and you can maintain this middle way and just gradually make wise decisions towards your goals, objectives, and interest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. There's some more questions. Someone in the back. You have a microphone back there? If you could turn that one off, that'd be good.
Thanks for explaining the goal and expectation. I still have like a follow-up question about the example of your wife and the cups and your kid. I mean, I have similar problems as well. I like to leave cups around. But my and
Come
my
to our house. We'll fix that for you real quick. Or invite me to your house. I'll fix that for you.
But my question is, it's similar to previously. You are saying the mother is trying to set up a goal for the kid to take the trash out. So I guess in this I don't know, example, your wife could say she's just trying to set a goal to make the house clean and trying to teach you.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
But it wasn't a goal because she got angry. Right? If there's anger, that's an expectation. That's a craving. That's a desire. That's a clear indication that it's not a goal. Because a goal, you can maintain your peacefulness and joy. Right? So I have a goal for my son to get good grades. And I've let him know that I think he should have all A's in every single one of his subjects. But in the past, he used to come home sometimes with F's. He would come home with an F. And even in computer science. And his dad has a degree in computers, and he could have easily asked for help. But he came home with this F in his computers, right? Well, if I had an expectation, I'd be angry and frustrated. I'd be yelling and hollering at him, right? Putting him on restriction and taking things away from him and punishing him for these things, right? That's because the mind is having a craving and expectation, wanting him to do it my way, and now trying to force him and pressure him to do things my way. And you can only be happy if they do it your way. But instead, we sat down and talked about it. What happened here? Why did you get this F? And then we discussed it, and he started sharing the things that he thinks are the reason why he got the F. And then we went in and we talked with the teacher. And we had a discussion with the teacher, and the teacher explained all the reasons why he got the F and explained to him how to get a better grade. And I was right there listening, and my son listened and he understood too. And then we left, and my son said, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it that way now. And we left. And then the very next grading period, he got another F. And I was like, what's going on here? You know, what's happening? So we just discussed it, right? And I wasn't having this craving, this expectation, so we could just have a discussion about it and make sure that he understood what he needed to do to improve and get better, right? So that's what you would like to be able to do. So if you see yourself or other people getting angry and frustrated like my wife was, there's a craving there. There's an expectation. It's not a goal. And so someone might say it's a goal, but that's where you need to be able to see the truth, right? People can say anything in the world. Someone can tell you that you are making them angry. But if you know the truth, if you've independently verified for yourself through the Four Noble Truths, which is the very first teaching of the Buddha, you know the truth, that you're not making that person angry. And that's where you can be peaceful and joyful. Because as a child, when I was growing up, my parents used to blame me for causing their difficulties in their relationship all the time. And I knew as a child, like, I'm not the one causing all of that. I didn't understand craving, desire, attachment, but I knew that I wasn't the one causing the problems in their relationship. But I used to get blamed for it all the time. And then I would sometimes feel guilty and sad because my mind didn't fully understand. But now, no matter what, if somebody told me how angry I was causing them to be, I would know the truth and I would be able to maintain my contentedness and peacefulness. So knowing the truth and be able to see clearly is to be able to understand with wisdom these natural laws. So someone could tell you, like in your example, like, yeah, this is just a goal. I have a goal for you to put these cups away. But if they're doing it with anger and hostility and bitterness, it's not a goal. It's a craving, desire, attachment. And one of the most loving things you can do for somebody is help them to be able to eliminate that. You can't get them to eliminate it, but you can create an environment where they have an opportunity to eliminate it. So that's what me and my son did. Was we created an environment where his mom had the opportunity to let this go, but it was ultimately her choice of whether to let it go or not. And when I do these kinds of things in our house, my wife and my son in the past have not always liked it, right? They would sometimes get angry with me when I would do these things. But if you talk to them now, are you glad your dad did these things? They're like, yeah, because they see how peaceful their mind is. So in the process of doing it, they oftentimes get angry. So they weren't pleased with the process and the methods, but they're very pleased with the results. And if you understand how the mind needs to move from the unenlightened state to the enlightened state, you actually can't get to enlightenment without walking through painful feelings. You have to walk through those painful feelings. It's kind of like if you join the mafia and you had all these new friends, these new ways to make money, and you got all this protection, you might get all these pleasant feelings. But when you leave the mafia, it's very painful. It's very hard to leave the mafia. But when you get out and you're fully free, it's like, wow, this is great, right? It's the same thing. If your mind's getting all these pleasant feelings by putting the cups away, when people stop doing that, you're going to be angry and frustrated. So you've got to go through those painful feelings in order to get to the other side where the peace and joy is. One of the ways I talk about it is not only with the mafia, but it's like walking through the fire in order to appreciate the fresh air on the other side. So when my wife came downstairs, she was in the fire and we helped her get to the other side where the fresh air was. And that's with the wisdom of understanding how this path works. With loving kindness and compassion, you can do this with people. Mm-hmm.
So if you were your wife, and you were trying to set this goal of this having no extra cups,
Mm-hmm.
how would you approach?
Sure. What I would have said is I would have came downstairs and said, hey guys, I see you leave your cups around quite a bit. I'm just curious, would it be possible for you to put your cups away after you drink? And then that's where me and my son would have said, well, we could, but if we did that, then each time we do that, that means there's going to be an extra cup for someone to wash. And at that time, she used to wash all the dishes. She doesn't anymore, but she used to. And we're not interested in seeing you wash 8 cups from me and 8 cups from our son and 8 cups from you. That's a lot of washing. So the reason why we leave our cups here is because we're not interested in having you have to wash all those cups. So there's no harm in making a request and doing this. So like my son, like in Thailand, the way the kitchens typically are is there's a sliding door between the living area and the kitchen, right? And the kitchen is where all the strong smelling odors are from the food, and the kitchen usually doesn't have air conditioning in Thailand. So there's a sliding door between the kitchen and our living room. And usually when my son goes into the kitchen, he doesn't close the door. And I usually ask him to close the door. And I say, Bailan, would it be possible for you to close the door? And he's like, oh yeah, Dad, sure, no problem. And he'll close the door, right? But he doesn't remember to do it every single time. I do because, I'm aware of this, but he's not really very aware of it. So I just request for him to do it. And then when he doesn't do it, I don't get angry and I don't get frustrated. I'll either do it myself or sometimes I ask him to do it if he's around. But if you have an expectation, then you're going to get angry. You're going to get frustrated. Now it's going to damage your relationship with the people around you. So you can politely ask and request, but then even when you do that, they're still not going to do it that way 100% of the time because of impermanence. So if you're going to request your family members to do things in the house a certain way and you're going to guide them towards that, you still need to understand they're not going to do it 100% of the time that way. And that way, if you don't have an expectation, you can be peaceful and joyful, even when they're doing it 80 or 90% of the time. Mm-hmm. Okay, so normally we cover more chapters. Oh, there's more questions? Okay, I was going to end class, but you guys have more questions? Yeah.
So with the experience you had with the cups, Mr. David, I'm all about exposure therapy. So how would you? So my past experiences, I was in a very similar situation. This was a few years ago. I was in a relationship with a woman and she asked me to do a specific thing and I didn't do it on time. All the clothes that I had that I was supposed to put away, I told her I'd get to it later. And I was trying to kind of do what you were doing. Well, my clothes ended up in the dumpster. So where do you find that line to where they're like ready to be exposed and where that's just like something you don't want to touch because they're not ready?
Well, my wife is Thai, so she's been theoretically learning these teachings for a very long time in her life. But up to that point, I had started helping her. It would have been probably like 3 years or so, or 4 years that I was helping her learn little things here and there. So I knew that her mind understood and it would let go. And that wasn't the first incident of me doing something like that. So I knew that this was going to be just fine. But for something like that, if you're with a partner that isn't practicing these teachings at all, you'd like to start with small things and build up to it and help them to be able to understand. And maybe even you get them a gift and you give them this book as a gift, right? Because usually if you give people a gift, because you're not interested in forcing these teachings on people, but the more you study them and learn them and you see they're working for you, you're going to know like, oh my gosh, this is the truth. These teachings actually work. Right? Because you're seeing your mind getting more and more peaceful and you're going to be interested in seeing other people get access to the teachings. And that's where you're not interested in forcing or pushing it on people, but you can give people gifts. You can have little conversations here and there when they're willing to have those conversations. So you're going to need to feel that out in each relationship and start with small things and build up to those types of things so your clothes don't end up in the dumpster. Yeah. Ma'am, did you have a question? I think I saw you. Did you? No? Okay. You have another question? Yeah.
Before I travel a lot, then I met some excellent friends. I think it's open my mindset. I learn a lot, but then problems comes. I dissatisfied with myself. I was always like that. Then I put high expectation for myself. Then I suffer from anxiety and depression.
Yep.
Then no taste and sometimes I live like a zombie. Die or live is nothing. It's kind of like a meaningless. Then I later take medicine. Then I feel better. I come to Chiang Mai. So now I don't think desire is not good. I come for the food, everything to uplift my the interesting about the world, the life. So here's a question I want to ask: did I think myself is so greedy, wanting more, that causes my depression, all these problems?
Yes, that's what causes depression. People think that it's in the Western medical field, they think it's biological. They think that it's chemicals in the brain, but the Western medical community is not understanding the mind. These are two different things. The brain is the physical organ in the body. The mind is non-physical. And as long as you're tweaking brain chemistry, I don't know if you're on medications or not, but some people will take medications and they're tweaking brain chemistry, trying to get back to something that feels comfortable for them. It never quite exactly works because they're not cleaning up the mind. As long as your mind is wanting and expecting things to be a certain way, you can only be happy when you get it that way. So while coming to Chiang Mai is great because now you get an opportunity to get exposure to these teachings, that's not what's going to solve your problem. Having a new type of food or a new environment or sunshine, if you're basing your happiness on all of these things, those things are not permanent. So as soon as those things are gone, your mind's experiencing sadness or frustration or some other discontent feeling. So if you're looking to get to the permanent peace and the permanent joy, you need to be able to train your mind. And that's what I do here is I help students to be able to do that. And I do everything at no cost so that you can learn and grow and develop. Whether you're here in Chiang Mai Mai or you're somewhere else in the world, like I live stream all of our classes. And even if you can't attend live, you can actually attend through watching the recordings, because sometimes you might be able to attend live and sometimes you can't. So you could be reading books, you could be attending classes, you could even be getting personal guidance with me, and I would be able to help you to move past that depression. And you'll be able to get to the point where your mind's peaceful and joyful. I've helped many people who've been on all kinds of different medications. Even me at one point, I was on medications before learning these teachings, and I've gotten free of all of that stuff. It's been many years, 7, 8 years since I've needed to take any of those kinds of things, because I've been able to now train my mind and see the truth that it wasn't brain chemistry that was causing these difficulties and struggles that I experienced in day-to-day life. It was just that the mind was untrained. So there's help for you. You just need to decide that you're ready to do the work to improve. I suggest you start with the first book, and I gave you all the different ways that you can get access to it. And then on Sundays and Wednesdays, those are the best times to attend for someone just starting. If you're going to be in Chiang Mai about 10 days from now, I'm going to be starting a new course. It's called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment. It's the first week of December. It's over there on our calendar. You can also see it on our website. That's the great place for people to start too, because in 5 days, you get a really nice foundation for the path to enlightenment. So whether you're going to be here or whether you'd like to join that course online, you're welcome to do that. I think you're maybe from China, right? Yeah, so you can come in through Zoom if you're in China, you're living in China. You can come in through Zoom. If you have ability, you could use YouTube or Facebook or other places like that to be able to get access to the content that I'm sharing to help you guys, because these teachings absolutely work. I know this with 100% certainty, but you need to be able to know that with your certainty through learning, through reflecting, to independently verifying, through practicing. And as you do, you'll see improvement. This depression is not permanent. You can overcome it. You just need the wisdom of how to do that. That's why the Buddha says right here that ignorance is the stain more significant than the very worst of stains. Because as long as you lack wisdom of how to train your mind, it'll just stay stuck in that same experience over and over and over again. So if you'd like this wisdom, it's available for you at no cost. You just need to put in the time and effort and energy to learn and grow and develop. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's great opportunity. That's what I want. Of the disease I suffer from, that's difficult to concentrate. The many problem. I think this can settle it.
That's what the mind will do, is when it has these pollutions, it will not only have depression and sadness and all these other things, but it'll lack concentration and focus and clarity and direction in your life, because the mind's just so polluted that you can't even see a path forward for your life. So purifying your mind will be the very best thing that you could ever do for your entire life. And then if you have other people around you, like friends or family, that are interested in learning at some point, they'll be able to see you becoming more and more peaceful and more joyful, and you'll be able to help them to understand as well. That's one of the beauties. That's not part of the path. That's not a priority on the path, is to teach others. It's to focus on your own growth and your own development. So one of the ways you might think about the teachings of the Buddha is like a self-help program. That's essentially what it is. It's not a religion. It's not rules and commandments. There's nobody that's going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. There's not rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer and things like this. Those are all misunderstandings of what the Buddha taught. It's really this inner work to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. And there's help for you to be able to accomplish that if that's what you'd like to do. Mm-hmm.
Thank you a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so normally we go through multiple chapters here, but since you guys were interested in the discussion and having lots of questions, we just went with the flow, right? Not attached to any one way or craving to do things any one particular way. I just helped the people as you guys ask questions. So this is great that we had this chapter. You guys were able to get help with all these different questions. If you guys would like to learn more or come and participate in other events that we have, tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'm going to be teaching a class here. We're going to do meditation first, but then you'll see me teaching in a more traditional method. And then at 6:30 tomorrow at the main hall, we have a meditation. I'm going to be teaching loving kindness meditation, which is a meditation to help you eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, and even the slightest dislike. This is a meditation that's going to help rewire your mind to stop being bitter and harsh and hostile with others. So I'm going to be teaching that at 6:30. And if you're coming for the Sunday night walking market, or if you'd like to come, we're just going to be right in there at 6:30. So you can come into the main hall if you'd like. And then at 9 p.m. tomorrow night, I'll be here teaching the same class that I was teaching in the morning at 9 a.m. I teach it again at 9 p.m. because like people in Europe are sleeping at 9 a.m. So that means when they wake up, if they would like to attend a live class, I teach both times. So tomorrow at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., you could come here if you like, or one of those. You can meet in the main hall at 6:30 if you'd like to attend that. And then on Wednesday here, I'm going to be also doing loving kindness meditation with students and then opening up to any and all questions that you have. And then that following week, I think it's December 1st, I think. I can't remember the exact date, but you'll see it over there on the calendar. That's where I'm starting that Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course. If you'd like to attend, it's 9 to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, and it caps off with a tour where I take students out to some temples around the local area and kind of helping you guys to learn about the temples and stuff like this. So if you have questions about the courses or where to get plugged in or anything like that, you're welcome to come talk to me. I'll help you get access to anything that you need to be able to help you along the way. Whatever you guys choose to do today, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.